Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Closer's Inner Circle podcast, hosted by your partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and together with my co-host, Ben Gay III, we dive into the world of sales mastery with the gem from the Closers Part 2. Now, these books, I know I've said it before, I'll say it again. These books, Part 1 and 2, are widely known across the world as the sales Bibles. If you don't have them on your shelves, on your entrepreneurial library shelves, get them. You need them. So today is a continuation of the past 4 shows where Ben and I opened up the second longest chapter in the book, which is called And Another Thing. I love that title, And Another Thing. So last week we worked from page 230, and today we open it back up to page 234. And we are going to start with it's part of the chapter called Which One Do You Want? Ben, welcome. It's good to have you here. As always, Wednesday's my favorite day.
Well, good morning to you. A pleasure to hear your soft Southern accent.
I was telling you in our virtual green room, I've got the springtime raspies. We have, a few seasons here in the deep south. Hot, hotter than hell, hurricane season, and right now, and mud season, that's another one. And right now we're in yellow season, which means if it's in a tree, it's going to float down and coat you in yellow pollen, whatever you want to call it. And I was telling you that I'm not allergic to much other than penicillin and marriage, but yellow season gets me every time. Yeah,
Yellow
seriously.
season is a killer. I've
I
told
know.
Gigi about it numerous times. She's never been in the South during pollen season. And I talked about one time using a snow shovel to get uh, pollen off the back deck just because it was quicker instead of a broom or whatever. And she said, a snow shovel? You're really exaggerating.
No.
And then somebody sent me a picture of their pollen season a week or so ago, I guess it was starting, and they had pictures of handfuls of pollen. So I called Gigi over, said, now look at this. It's not that the weight that you need a snow shovel, it's just quicker. And when it's really coming down, it's hard to believe.
It is. I was in a parking lot not too long ago and I saw a really yellow car that wasn't yellow to start with. I think it might have been silver underneath all of that. And in the back window, it said, test pollen, do not clean. So, do not disturb or something like that. And I thought they're just going to wait till the bitter end and then take it to the car wash.
Yeah, it is really something.
It is, and it will get you. Even my cats are sneezing and they don't go outside. I think they're just doing it in charity with me. What are we talking about today? I know we have been working in this chapter for a while. It's the second longest chapter. The other chapter that we will get to is sales infiltration, and that takes up a good bit of the book, and that's going to be many, many episodes, and I can't wait for that. But we're talking right now about which one do you want? What does that mean?
Well, the old some people listening now are rolling their eyes. Oh, he's going to cover the alternate choice close, which J. Douglas Edwards coined that term 50 years ago. Do you want the red or the blue, or the this or the that, and so on. And it is a cousin of the alternate choice close, but it's just far more effective. And the story I tell in the book is about a young lady who was having trouble closing, which is one of the things that always seems to come up. And she also had a tendency to go too long, to talk too long. And so I killed two birds with one stone, solved the talking too much, turned it into a benefit, and dragged the alternate choice close out, but made it 10 times more powerful just through phraseology. And I might mention that phraseology thing just a bit. I often find that changing a word, or as we've done in the insurance business on television ads, the disclaimer at the bottom, you'll be connected to a live, insurance agent, is a warning. I started having my clients, now everybody in the industry stolen the idea, put an
This
exclamation mark.
happens to you a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I'm forever hearing things that Yeah, that sounds good. Oh, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. Oh, wait a minute, that was in the closers, or one of my seminars or what have you. My favorite one is people like to buy from people they know, like, trust, uh, and with whom they feel safe. Know, like, and trust was the way I first started using it many, many years ago. And I'm talking to somebody on the phone, and they said, "Yeah, we call that what is it? Um, KLT, yeah, KLT system." And they actually mentioned that first. We use the KLT system. I said, "What's that?" Well, people like I don't know if you know this, but people like to buy from people they know,
No, like and
like
trust.
and I didn't know it turned into an acronym,
Yeah,
and
you're
been
famous.
given, and somehow when it became an acronym, my name dropped off of it, which is sort of interesting. But it
No,
certainly
those
helped a lot
things
of people
happen, but you're here to set the record straight.
subtly and frequently.
Yes.
Uh, but anyway, many of the old things can be made new again in the case of the exclamation mark down at the bottom where the disclaimer is in the television ads. We now say, almost everybody in the industry now says, you'll be connected with a live or an actual or whatever insurance agent, exclamation mark. So it went from a warning to a benefit. You're not going to waste your time talking to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing or sitting in a call center and their previous call was for dog collars or something. You're going to talk to somebody who really knows what they're doing, and the benefits, the responses jumped almost immediately. They put it. I'm making up days, but they put it in. This is a year or so ago. Put it in on a Monday, and by Tuesday afternoon, they had more leads than they'd ever had, and because people were excited about talking to somebody they like, so someone who knew what they were talking about. So it went from a warning to a benefit. And there's so many things like that in selling, just a tweak here or a tweak there. I'm not good at watching television with Gigi because if a commercial comes on, I have perfect pitch when it comes to the wrong word, the right word. Oh, that was a good phrase. Oh my God, they shouldn't say that. And it's usually just a word or two that can change everything. Uh, so be careful what you're saying. Record what you're saying, listen to it, and then think, well, if I were a customer, how would I react to that? Or how would I react to it being presented that way? Sue, back
I'm
to
putting that in my book because
good.
seriously, and I'm writing it down right now because I do recommend when people are getting ready to do their podcast to talk out loud. I
Yes.
do it all the time. I'll write something down. I don't write the way I speak, obviously. I have big words and I can use them, but
Yep.
not when I'm talking because I will bite the tip of my tongue off. It's just going to happen. but but you have to listen to what you're saying, then you have to test it again and then put it down for a little
Yep.
while, go back and listen to it again and go, oh, yeah, it's going to be one or the other.
Absolutely. And Denise let that slide by, ladies and gentlemen. She's, I'm gonna put that in her book.
My book.
I'm gonna put that in my book,
Yeah.
is the way she said it. Uh, anyway, her book is The Closers Part 4, which I am anxiously awaiting to begin editing and reviewing with her. I discovered with Denise, it doesn't take much editing.
I
She's
think you said you changed a comma or two and that was it.
yeah,
No pressure here.
in
Thanks.
the first chapter you sent me, I moved, and they probably both are debatable. I took out one comma and added one comma in a whole chapter. And I told Gigi, I said, I feel like I've wasted my time. She doesn't need me. You know,
No, no,
it,
no.
it,
I
every
need
little bit helps and something
you.
can slide by. I quit smoking. I used to be a 3 pack a day smoker in my tailor-made black suits. Both are now gone. I don't smoke and I don't wear suits anymore. But I did that because of what we're talking about now. I used to record video, whatever, everything that I did, if it was at all possible, so I could study it. Now, I'd heard all the health risks, don't cancer is caused by smoking. This is not good. It cuts back on your breathing. It cuts 8 years or whatever it was off your life. And I don't care that doctors recommend Pall Mall, which they used to, it said in the commercials. It's stupid. None of that worked. I had friends die of lung cancer. My grandmother died of lung cancer, and she didn't start smoking until World War II when people
Oh,
started asking for her cigarette coupons.
oh,
And she thought, well, I must be missing something.
she didn't want to share.
Yeah. So instead of giving them the coupon, she started smoking and then died of cancer. I stood beside her bed when she went, and I probably went outside the room to smoke uh, towards the end. None of that worked, but I'm watching myself. I did a seminar in New York, and when I got back, I was up in the training room watching the video to see where I could improve. And I suddenly became aware of how stupid I looked smoking and how much time I spent with my face contorted because smoke had just gotten in my eyes
Oh,
or or brushing ashes off of my suit. This is, a full day or 2 day or 3 day seminar where the speaker would smoke also, and everybody had ashtrays in front of their chairs. And so I'm watching it, and I suddenly realize I'm not listening to what I'm saying anymore. I'm fixated on how stupid I look and how distracted the smoking thing made me. So, especially in the black suit with the ashes flying around. So while watching it, I reached in my shirt pocket, pulled out a pack of cigarettes, crunched it up, threw it in the trash can, and haven't smoked since. It was because I listened and watched how I was acting. So in your podcast, I know you do it, and everyone should do it, especially after they get your book and start doing their own podcast. Uh, Listen to yourself. You'll be astounded. When people say, "Oh, I can't stand my voice,"
I
that's
really
prime.
can't. You know
Yeah.
that. I can't stand it.
Well, that's primarily because you don't hear what they hear. Here's a little trick.
Apparently not.
Yeah, stand in your shower, mouth towards the hard tile corner. Cup your ears, each ear, like you're trying to hear better, and from about 12 inches away, maybe 18 inches away, and talk. That's what they hear.
Oh,
And
now I'm scared. I don't
oh,
I
your
don't
voice
want
is
to know.
delightful. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
I get a lot of people commenting on my voice, and no, I don't do toll-free numbers, but I don't hear it. I just don't hear it. I never have, probably never will. I'll try the shower thing now.
Mhm. The trick with the shower thing is don't try and trick it. Talk like you normally talk, and then you'll hear what the rest of us are hearing. And it's really incredible. But check what you're saying and how you're doing it and so on. Back to which one do you want? This lady who was having the two problems. One, she wasn't closing, and two, she was talking too much. Here's the little change we made. I took a page and a half to say it in the book, but I'll give it to you quickly here. We said you don't have to cut back on what you're doing. Continue to use the benefits, 5 benefits when you only need 3 or whatever. And she was a Southerner, so we trained her to stop and say in her best Southern drawl, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm telling you more than you want to know, aren't I? I'll be quiet. Which one do you want?"
Hmm.
So it's not even black or blue. Can I meet with you Tuesday or
Uh,
Wednesday? Uh, Whatever. It's actually more personal because you may not, do you want to meet with me Tuesday or Wednesday? The answer might be neither. I want to meet with you next week on Friday. So sometimes the alternate choice close can't be right. It's a good idea, but sometimes it can't be right. But I'm sorry, I'm telling you more than you want to know, aren't I? I'll be quiet. Which one do you want? I'll emphasize it for teaching. Which one do you want? And then she just stops talking. And she went from a struggling salesperson to the top person in her organization. And, she was working on other things too, but that was the top one. Yeah, I'm quoting from memory, but she went from a closing rate of 40 or 50% to 80% rather quickly because it put the ball in the court. It's like I use fair enough frequently
Right,
in
you
in
do.
closes. Yeah, and it's an old Southern thing. That's where I got it. But fair enough doesn't really call for a yes or no. I want to buy. I don't want to buy. It calls for an opinion. If it's fair enough and they say yes, they bought. If they if it's not fair enough, it smokes out what would make it fair enough. With just 2 words, people started telling me, well, here's what I'm concerned about. And it smoked out the real objection, which perhaps I had missed. So, which one do you want? Fair enough. Those are which one do you want? 5 words, and fair enough, 2 words. Exclamation mark at the end of the disclaimer, not even a word, and it changes thing. The exclamation mark change in industry. It made a major correction in an entire industry of television commercials and so on, and probably in their general attitude in talking to people. I was working with people back when Obamacare was first coming in, and people were panicked that wouldn't have their insurance policy and so on. And I'm working with a bunch of people who are selling insurance policy in the medical field, and everybody they talk to is scared. And how am I going to get coverage and so on? And I've just made their opening sentence. Uh, Hi, this is Ben Gay with the XYZ company. Uh, I'm returning your call because you inquired, or I'm calling you because. But I assume you're worried about your coverage, to which everyone said yes. Well, I want you to sit back and relax. The cavalry has arrived. Before we get off this call, you will be insured and you will be happy. Fair enough? And
But
the
see, that's
pressure,
comforting because all of a sudden they realize that you're listening to them, you understand their angst, and you want to be fair with them. That makes perfect.
absolutely, absolutely. And again, changed an industry, changed a company first, and then it spread throughout the industry. I've got to figure out a way where you don't get to use it unless you were in the company that paid me.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, yeah.
You let me know how that works out, and
I
I'll just
already know. I just like to daydream.
I just did the golf clap for you. It's like, okay. I wanted to go back just a little bit, though, Ben. You were talking just very briefly as part of the conversation, but you mentioned, when you were talking about this lady and she was giving 5 benefits rather than 3. I'm a 3 person. That 4 is too many. 5 is just annoying.
Yeah. And that was the category she was in. Annoying, you know.
It makes sense because
Yeah,
you got to 3 and you're like, okay, and you want to make a decision, but now somebody's giving you 4 and 5 and you've lost track. I put the
absolutely.
try in 3. That's it. That's all you're getting out of me.
Fred Herman, a great old sales trainer, he's the one that coined the term "keep it simple salesman." And his legendary recording "Kiss," which in his case was "Keep It Simple Salesman." Fred used to say that most salespeople, and I'm making up numbers, I don't remember what it was exactly, but most salespeople spend 40% of their time selling and 60% of their time buying it back. And
I've
so,
seen that. There used to be a guy that would come into my jewelry store that is, before the economy went so bad here that there were bumper stickers that said last one out of Louisiana, turn off the lights. They weren't
yeah,
changing. Everybody was going to Atlanta, Georgia. But it was bad. And I'd see this guy coming and I would duck under my workbench. I wasn't there. And it didn't matter
because
if he had really good stuff. I couldn't stand listening to him.
well, when you've discovered that, and of course that we've talked about it, I think in the past, one of the things you need to do is survey your customers, have them surveyed by other people, unbeknownst to you, allegedly, or ask them yourself. Write down 15 or 20 questions and say, we've become buddies, uh, and I appreciate your business. More importantly, I appreciate your friendship. I'm trying to get better, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to be blunt. Tell me the truth. And one of them, I don't care who you are, one of them might be, do I talk too much? You know, do I over explain things? Do I talk in trade terminology? I get so many things, Denise, on the internet where they want to know if I'm interested in having my Wazoo uh, Kaleidoscope 13 adjusted. My point is, I don't know what they're talking about.
Isn't
Uh,
wazoo a portion of your bottom?
I think so.
I do too.
And the answer is no, I don't. Thank you very much. I'll go see the doctor. No, the trade terminology, talking too much, talking in trade terminology, assuming they know more than they do, and that's not their job. That's your job. You can question them as you go along. Does this make sense to you? Am I using terminology that's uh, because here's one that I coined, another one, confused minds don't buy.
Right.
If they're confused, thinking about the last thing, they're still trying to figure out the previous sentence and you've marched on. Well, you've marched on by yourself because they're still thinking about the previous sentence. And then they're confused because they realize they didn't hear what you said after that. So A, they were confused, and B, they were ignoring you because they were trying to get unconfused. So check with you. The customer is not the enemy. The customer is a friend with a problem, soon to be a friend, but you can solve that in 5 to 10 minutes. They are a friend with a problem. We must A, make friends, and B, find out what the real problem is. And then if you have a solution to it, tell them what it is. You may not have a solution to it. Tell them that too, but tell them you'll find out or refer them to somebody else and become their go-to person. People call me and ask what I think about a certain automobile. I don't know, but I have friends who do know, and I'll put them in direct contact, or I'll call them and ask, is that the only question you got? Fine. I'll call them, get the answer for them. But there are things that the customer will tell you what they want to buy and how they want to buy if you ask the right questions and listen and don't make the tragic mistakes we've been talking about. One of the things people always saying to me, well, sales has changed a lot, hasn't it? No,
Oh,
not really.
it hasn't.
Yeah,
Shut up and listen, pay attention, give them what they need.
right. If you can. And if you can't, be honest about that and save the sale and the contact and relationship for another day. But in thousands of years ago in the silk trade, what the customer wanted to know was what's in it for me.
And
Today, if you're
nothing has
talking to,
changed. What's in it
yeah,
for me?
that's
I tell
what's in it
them,
for me. That's
yeah,
all I care about.
when people want me to build a website for them, and I love to build websites, I do them in my sleep practically. And they'll come up with this whole list of things that they want to have on the front page. And I'll just say, okay, sit down, don't talk, because I'm about to hurt your feelings. All people want to know when they get there in that 3 seconds, 3 to 6 seconds that you have their attention is what's in it for them. You can put all this other stuff on the interior pages or in your newsletter or on, Facebook. You cannot load up your index page. You just can't. People will go, oh, geez, and they bounce. And
or
that's a
your
technical term, by the way.
or your sales presentation. It's the same thing. They're cousins. I didn't count them. I think it tells me on the computer somewhere how many emails I have when I come in the morning. This morning, I'm guessing 400. I opened about six of them. I
Right. They're all
read
junk.
I read the subject line of every single one and who it was from. and I have my hand on the delete button. I think I don't know what I do with my left hand. There's some button over there I push while I'm doing it, and it was delete, 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 delete. You didn't tell me quickly, succinctly, what might be in it for me. It was in the I was browsing the internet and found your web page. Bye. I know where that one's going. Uh, I normally don't do this, but and somewhere there's a little nest of people who come up with the same phrases, I guess, and then sell
Oh, yeah.
them
Yep.
to people because they all say the same thing.
And they're all over LinkedIn, by the way. If they're
Yeah.
coming from LinkedIn, just delete them. At least
The,
that's my rule anyway.
well, that's close to what I do. I don't set out necessarily to delete them. I want to make sure I don't miss something that's important to me. Uh, but again, 4 or 500, whatever it was this morning, opened 6 to 10 maybe. Uh, and then realized in 3 of those cases, I shouldn't have bothered, but you don't know unless you look. And I was looking in particular for one email this morning and it came in. So and speaking of that, we were within one book of going on back order for the first time ever with the
I saw
closers.
that. I saw that on Facebook and I started to send you a note and say, what the heck? How did that happen?
It happened because we were down to, I don't know what the order point is, but there is an order point. When we get to this, somebody tells the people in purchasing to order. And I'm guessing, I think it was 1,000 books. Hit 1,000, it's time to order. By the time they get here, of any given title, by the time they get here, you'll be in good shape. And then somebody called up and great upsell sales story. A guy called in to buy a copy of the Closers Part One to see if he liked it, and then he might order a copy of the Closers Part Two to see if he liked it. We didn't get to 3 and 4s and finished, and we didn't get to 5. But that was basically what he said. Well, I chatted with him for a few minutes, and then, not knowing what the inventory was, didn't care, uh, upsold him to, instead of 1 to think about it, he ordered 1,000 of the Closers Part One and 1,000 of the Closers Part Two. He said, this will save you another call because I'm going to call back and say, now I want to look at the Closers Part Two, and we're going to chat, and you're going to talk me into buying another 1,000. I said, yeah,
You're going
that's
to talk me into.
yeah.
He
I
knew he
said,
was speaking to a master closer.
and he told me what he wanted and how he was going to do it. So a 1 book sale turned into a 2,000 book sale, which moved up our uh, ordering process and stripped us of a inventory that we thought we were a couple of weeks away from. But yesterday, with 1 new book left in my hand, the van pulled up and delivered another supply. So,
I bet you were
and
clutching your stomach or
oh, I'm
somebody
telling you,
was.
it's not that we might be on back order for a few days. We've never been on back order. Never. I don't want to break that record. So part of it was ego and part of it was good service to the customers and so on. But that's how close we came. And that's the reason, as you astutely figured out, that I sent out that thing yesterday through Constant Contact saying, relax, we got them. They didn't know how close we came to not having them. A 2 book order would have put us on back order. So and the delivery driver of the van was really surprised when I hugged and kissed him.
Okay, now I have a picture in my head that's not going away. Soon. I'm so
All
glad
right.
that worked out. But you were talking about questions, and when we were in our virtual green room before we started recording here, you mentioned somebody had sent you a question, and we love questions, y'all. Send them to us. We will answer them. It doesn't matter if it's about sales, it doesn't matter if it's about podcasting. If we can answer it, we will answer it. If we don't have the answer, we'll find the answers. But somebody asked you about the yellow door. What the heck
Right.
is the yellow door? I mean, I just kind of looked at my screen and went, "What? I don't even know."
Huh?
Yeah,
I said to myself, self said,
self.
huh?
Yeah, that's exactly. Self kind of did do that.
Well, the yellow door is a great story, and I was so glad he asked it because about a week ago I had part two of the yellow door, and it'd be a good example for you. The the original yellow door story came from Ray Considine, one of my dear friends and mentors, now gone. He's the one that wrote Waymish. Why are you making it so hard for me to give you my money? And it's a book filled with stories about good experiences and bad experiences and so on, and dealing with salespeople and companies and so on. I have a little contribution in there, a chapter or two, I think. And so anyway, one day he's telling me, he said, Ben, remember, there's always a yellow door. And I said, okay. And like you, I went, okay, I'll remember that. Why am I going to remember that? And he says, "Oh, I thought you knew the story." He goes to the New York World's Fair. This is years ago with his wife, who was a big executive with AT&T. And they go to the future, the section of the World's Fair, which was looking into the future. Everyone who had an exhibit there was, and here's where we're going. AT&T had one where the lines were backed up. So even though she's an executive with AT&T and Ray was stunningly handsome and tall and stood out in the crowd, usually got pulled to the front by maitre d's who didn't even know him. It was just he looked like somebody that ought to be at the front of the line. He was magical. Gigi asked me the first time she met him, she said, "I just love Ray. What does he do?" And I said, "He's Ray. That's what he does."
He just shows up, stands around, and people fawn.
Right, exactly. He doesn't have to do anything else. But anyway, they're standing in this line and they come to a sign, sort of like Disneyland, from this point to the door is an hour or 2 hours or whatever, a warning. And he saw some people turning around and leaving or planning to come back later. But he looked down the side of the AT&T building, and there was a door that people went up to and knocked, and the door opened and they went in. Primarily, he thinks maintenance people, executives with AT&T, something, and it was painted bright yellow. So he said to his lovely wife, "Come with me," and took her hand, and they walked across the grass to the yellow door. And he went, "Considine," and they opened the door and said, "Come right in."
What?
I thought he knocked, he expected to come in, the
Right.
assertive, assumptive close. And he did have one advantage some of us don't have. Movie star, handsome and look commanding, so you have to make up that difference with personality and drive. But anyway, right in. And they weren't just in the exhibit in general, they were right up at the front of the line, or front of where the front of the line was spreading out, because they were in by the most favorite exhibits. So he said, "Ben, there's always a yellow door." And that stuck with me. Years later, I've used it hundreds of times mentally and to get into things and get out of things. The yellow doors can swing both ways. I'm down calling on one of my friends, happens to be a billionaire, spelled with a B, and he has a gatekeeper. She has a much fancier title and much more authority, but among other things, her job is to keep you from bothering her boss, my friend. She's now my friend too. Her first name's Jennifer. And so I'm standing outside and we're talking. I've been talking about getting past gatekeepers that morning. And we're standing outside and this squirrel comes down, runs across the railing. And I was just looking at it like you would look at a bird or a squirrel or whatever. And he goes down to the corner of the railing, picks up a cracker and starts eating it. And I said, look at that. That's somebody's leaving food out for that squirrel. And they all said, because they work for my friend. Oh, that's Buddy. That's Jennifer's squirrel. And he comes down rather regularly. And the reason Jennifer's name had already come up was she's the world's toughest gatekeeper. You just do not get in to see my friend unless you were invited, expected, or have a wonderful story. So I said, well, that's fascinating. So when I got home, pardon me if I've told you the story before, but it's a yellow door story. When I got home back to Placerville, California, we have feed stores. His office is in Pasadena, and I don't think they have feed stores. I didn't see any. I went to our local feed store and I said, do you have gourmet squirrel food? And they said, well, yeah, actually we do. It's called expensive squirrel food, but if you want to call it gourmet, sure. And I said, well, I need enough to pack a flat rate, priority mail flat rate box. Pardon me. So they gave me what they thought was right and was almost perfect. And I sent it to her, priority mail. I sent it to her office, addressed to Buddy the squirrel. And the couple of days later, the phone rings. It's Jennifer. Ben, I just wanted to thank you so much. This is Buddy's. I'm the squirrel. She calls herself the squirrel whisperer. Buddy and I want to thank you so much. He loves the feed and so on. And anytime you need anything from me or from this company or from our friend, uh, you just call me and I'll get it handled, which she has on numerous occasions. The cost was uh, priority mail, medium box, $10 worth of squirrel food. I'm making up numbers. I really don't remember what it was. And knowing that was the opening to her, that was the yellow door. Here's the most recent one. I was so glad the guy asked about it because this had just happened, I'm guessing a couple of weeks ago. We're having dinner at a friend's house, and I knew where she worked, but I've never known what she does. And the reason I found out in the general conversation, the reason we don't know what she does or exactly where she does it is she stocks, inventories the drugs in a large medical facility. And if you were into sticking up people to get prescription
Mm-mm.
drugs,
Yeah,
this
she
is where
needs
you'd
safety.
go.
Right. She needs
Yeah,
to be kept anonymous.
right. And I said, oh, that's fascinating. She said, well, I know you're good, but there's no way on earth that you'll ever find out where I work. My husband, who's sitting right there, my husband doesn't even know exactly where he works. And he said, yeah, I've given up. I don't care anymore. So I just know she goes into that building and disappears. I said, well, and I told him the yellow door story. Uh, she said, well, that's a wonderful story, and I'm sure it works in selling, but it wouldn't work at my place. I said, I'll bet you $50 I can be standing at your door, smiling at you within a week.
You do.
Not possible. She said, not possible. And
Oh,
she said there are many people in the hospital don't know what goes on behind that door. It's not marked, it doesn't say pharmacy or drug cabinet or anything. And I'm not even sure if it had a number on it. I forgot. Anyway, I said $50. That's the deal. She says, okay, you're on. And her husband said, I hope you can afford a $50 hit because you just lost that one. I said, okay, thank you. So next day, I call our local florist and I,
you don't even need to finish the story. That is tricky.
and I said, I need a dozen roses delivered to so and so at the so and so medical facility. And but because they're having a surprise party for her, it's important it arrives as close as possible to noon on Wednesday, whatever, as humanly possible. Can you do that? Absolutely. So I placed the order, paid for it. It was about $60, so I'm down 10. I'm figuring at this point, uh, potentially might be down 100 and 10. But I said, okay, you promised me you're going to do it. You're going to deliver them. And the reason I ordered a dozen roses is you can't hide those or miss them. You know, they always long stem. Whoever's carrying them, it's like waving a banner or a flag or something. So I go up to the hospital, the medical facility, around 11:30, and I sit down in the lobby where I can see the receptionist desk. And about 10 till noon, the truck pulls up, which I knew because that's where I'd ordered, and it's our local florist, most popular one. Truck pulls up, guy gets out, got the dozen roses, goes up to the desk, and I can see the lady shaking her head. No, you can't go give those to so and so. And I thought, uh-oh. She said, but I can. So she takes the dozen roses from him, thanks him, gets somebody to cover her seat for a few minutes, goes down the hall. And I trailed behind her, like I was looking for a room of a patient. We went up a couple of floors, and got off the elevator. I talked to her. Hi, how you doing? How's business? Good. I said, I saw you the way you worked with people. You're really good on that front desk. And she says, thank you. She says, well, I got to make a delivery. I said, well, you go ahead. And she goes up. I'm trailing about 20 feet behind her, knocks on the door. I pick up my pace. The door opens. There's my friend. And there I am standing behind
Is
the
this a
reception.
former friend? I have to ask.
No. And I told her, I said, look, I want the $50 to cover the cost of the roses, but this victory is so sweet. You can have the roses and I'm out 50. Don't worry about it.
Oh my
And,
God.
and she says, unbelievable.
Oh, she's gonna get you.
Probably
I
so.
hope you know this. She's thinking about it. She's
Yeah,
plotting. It may
if
be 3 years from now. She's gonna get you.
yeah, I'm
And
afraid
I'm
now
there for it. I'm
if
I'm on her side.
if her doorbell if our doorbell goes off, I'm afraid to answer it, Fear there'll be 12 clowns singing Merry Christmas or something. But anyway, that's another yellow door story. There's always a way. The yellow door with Considine was literally a yellow door, and the ability to have the confidence to figure out what it was and act like he belonged there. Considine. And then Buddy the Squirrel was one of the many benefits I've had from learning about the yellow door. And there's probably a certain amount of extra money I've made as a result of that relationship with a squirrel whisperer, because anything I want is just boom, boom, boom. At least it saved me time, if nothing else. Uh, One time I was down there and I was doing some stuff for him, and we had not sent the invoice. I normally get paid in advance before I get on a plane or in a car or anything, but this was short notice and we didn't. So I go up to her desk and I said, Jennifer, I don't know what else to do with this. Here's the invoice for today. If you just put it in the pipeline, I would appreciate it. And she looked at it and she says, easy peasy, tap, 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 zzz, out comes the check. I'm confident that wouldn't have happened if Buddy hadn't gotten a box of gourmet squirrel food.
Oh, it
Um,
would. It would have gone into a pile on her desk.
right.
You're talking about people, you've got the gatekeepers. I am my own gatekeeper. Sometimes I'm tough to get a hold of and it's deliberate.
Yeah.
But I have reasons for that. And other times I'm, too available. But we all have gatekeepers, all of us.
In my case, it's the system. Uh, I'm a big fan of voicemail. In the early days when it for codophones, the answering devices and all first came out, I was fascinated by them. So I would, when the phone rang, I'd listen to the recording start and then I'd jump on the phone. Hello, how are you? Over the years, I've figured out what a great benefit voicemail and things like it, answering services are, in that you get to pick and choose. Um,
Absolutely. And we have to. If we stop to pick up every time the phone rang or an email popped up, you get nothing done. And I mean nothing. So
yeah,
you
I've
have to, parse those things out.
I've changed. I used to email first thing in the morning, and then if I heard a ding, as soon as I got done doing what I'm doing now, I'd go check to see what that was. Unless there's something I'm waiting for to come in specific, I check email first thing in the morning, midday if I get a chance, but that's not required, and right before I leave. And the rest of the time I don't, because I go back to mail. Do you remember those envelopes that used to come to your house and the guy in the blue suit would hand them to you?
I
Uh,
have a stack of those ready to go out,
yeah, well,
but
we
somebody
only,
just needs to write them for me.
I get, I get, I go back far enough when we had two mail deliveries. You had a morning mail delivery and an afternoon mail delivery. Somewhere along the line, they both went away, and now we have the I'll get there when I can mail delivery,
Hmm.
which varies wildly from one point of the day to the other. But my point is, we got we did our business and everything went fine with one delivery of random incoming stuff a day. You can do that with email. You can do that with phone calls and voicemail. And if something's important, voicemail, I tend to check a little more, especially if I'm waiting for a call. But by and large, that's a screening device. I'm not hard to get to, but it may take, you say when you give out your phone number, I'm not going to answer, but I'll get back to you as fast as I can. That's telling them heads up. You don't dial my number and, hi, this is Denise. Of course, I called a secret number today
You
and I
did.
got, and I got what?
I told you why. It was rude, but I was tangled in my headphones. I was trying to answer one phone, get out from underneath my headphone, and honestly, my foot was stuck under something under my desk. I can tell you that part. You're lucky you got a what.
Yeah, I know.
There was another word that was trembling on my lips.
You want to plunge on to the next section?
I do, and that next section is called Be Brave, and it's a fairly lengthy section, so let's get as far as we can with it.
Well, I'll probably be able to cover it because I like to do overviews. I'm a generalist and operate from 35,000 square feet. While writing, I try and put everything in I can to make sure they get the point. But since we're talking and there's a flow going on, let me just tell you the overview part of this. I had a salesman, and I've done this with lots of people, men, women, going back 20 years and so on, but this was probably the most stark example. I had a guy, salesperson, who worked for me when we had the big answering service and its marketing department, marketing division. He worked in the marketing division, and he was a killer. If he got you on the phone, you were going to buy, but he didn't have enough time to sell. I mean, he was doing great. It was number one most time, most days, weeks, months, but he wasn't living up to his potential. And I said to him, "What's the problem?" And he said, "I don't have enough time." And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, the stuff." And you and I've just been talking about that, Denise. Uh, the things that interrupt the incoming call, uh, getting your clothes ready for the next seminar, going to the dry cleaners, doing this and so on. But he said, "But when I sell, as you know, I have a very good closing ratio. His rivaled mine, 86%. I don't know what his was, but I remember thinking, damn, he's good." Uh, but the problem was time. Time. It kept coming every time I talked to him about time. So I had him timed, uh, literally with someone sitting within eyesight, not to be distracting, but within eyesight, keeping track of how his day went. And after a few days, we discovered that of the 8 to 12 hours he spent, he was hardworking. It wasn't a matter of not being there enough. But the 8 to 12 hours he was in the office, um, only about 3 hours of it was spent in a closing situation where he was talking to somebody and the subject was, "You're going to buy XYZ or not." but that's what we're doing now, closing situations, just over 3 hours out of 8 to 12 hours. So the little breakthrough I gave him to cut it somewhat shorter was I said, I want you to hire an assistant. And he said, well, I can't. What do you mean hire an assistant? You want to hire one for me? I said, no, no, this is for you. It's not for me. I don't want to do anything for me other than free up your time. This assistant will, and I pointed out a space, will set up a desk for him right there. And this assistant will do everything for you except eat, go to the bathroom, and close. Everything else is something that you don't need to wash your car, you don't need to gas your car, you don't need to go to the dry cleaners, you don't need to file things, you don't need to go to accounting and find out about this or that, whatever. Your job is to be on the phone. This is before Zoom and everything. Your job is to be on the phone talking to people. The conclusion of the conversation being they buy or say no, whatever, but it's a closing situation, nothing else. So I found a lady for him. He had to approve it because he was paying her, but found a lady for him who worked for us elsewhere, who was tough, friendly, delightful to be around, but tough. And if her instructions were, you make sure he doesn't have to do anything other than close, I didn't hear it frequently, but he would tell me, I'd go to do something and she'd go, nope, nope, sit down and call somebody. Or here's 5 calls you need to return. She was the screening device. She was the gopher. And at first he paid her as little as he possibly could. And then he figured out she was probably half of his income because his sales doubled as a result of he had nothing else to do but close. And he even gave up smoking. He used to go out in back of the building and smoke. And apparently she gave him the anti-smoking lecture.
Or, look at the time that you're wasting.
Yeah,
More life.
it takes you 12 minutes. You probably knew it takes you 12 minutes to smoke a cigarette. Imagine how much money you could have made or used that 12 minutes wrapping up an effective sales close. And so it's become almost a cliche with me now when I'm working with salespeople. How much time do you spend? How many distractions do you have? And then it's a budgetary thing, which comes first, the chicken or the egg. But in many, many cases, I said, you need a keeper. You need someone to keep you in line and do everything else. I remember one time we were having an employee picnic. I think we had 2 a year, 4th of July and something else, employee picnic. And he came to me, he says, Mr. Gay. I said, yes. He said, am I allowed to go to the employee picnic or do I have to stay here and close? And I said, okay, we're going to make an exception. You may go to the employee picnic. And you can even stand beside me if you want and take some of the conversations I have to take with the drunken husband, the one who comes up to you, the employee picnic. You know, my wife won't say this to you, but I will.
Oh, geez. Down here, we call that Uncle Bob.
Yeah.
Nobody wants Uncle Bob anywhere near them.
There's always one of those around. So
Or 10.
anyway, he got permission to go to the employee picnic. Other than that, and Sundays off or whatever, I said, you set up your own schedule, whatever makes you happy. But then she is going to keep you on it, and you're not going to have any excuse. And I asked him one day, I saw his checks going up. I was signing those. But I asked him one day, what's changed in your life? He said, my butt is sore. And I said, why? He said, because I sit all day
She won't let
talking.
me move. She probably had to get a bathroom pass.
Or kitty litter box or something.
Worse.
But yeah, but she really shaped it up, and it makes a great story. But it is so true. When I have a mentoring client say, "Well, I don't have time for that," I say, "Yeah, you do. If you want to pay me, I'll fly there with a clipboard and a pad, and I'll follow you around for a day or two." and I will find you 8 to 10 hours. I guarantee you that you didn't know you had. And I always think of my friend and his keeper when I'm telling that story or when I'm giving that as an example, because we waste, I don't care what your job is, you waste so much time. And in selling, highest paid profession on earth, with a few exceptions, with selling, that wasted time could be over time, properly invested and so on, millions of dollars because,
And Ben, this was all before the advent of virtual assistants.
yep, yep. But a virtual assistant, it would probably do that, just keep you loaded up. But one of the tricks was, I guess you could put her on Zoom or him on Zoom. One of the tricks was she saw him. Her
Right.
desk was canted in such a way that he couldn't do anything that she couldn't see.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You just all of a sudden disappeared.
Well, yeah,
Um,
you're not used to Southerners stopping talking.
yeah, I kind of am. I didn't expect because I do it myself. I'll just kind of lose focus and oh, sorry. Yeah, I do it too. But there are these days, it's easy to track yourself, find out how much time you're wasting,
Sure.
find out what you're not focusing on. And focus is a big, big problem these days for so many reasons. And if you're losing focus because the phone rang or an email popped up or somebody rang the doorbell, even though there's a sign that says don't on my
Yeah.
door.
No
You know,
solicitors.
well, it's a little bit ruder than that, but yeah. But it takes, I don't know what the studies are. I'm gonna have to make them up, but it takes 20 minutes to get back to where you lost your focus.
Great point. It's not
And it's
just the
ridiculous.
interruption, it's the
No.
recalibration of your
There you
brain
go.
back
Yep,
to, yeah.
that's
Uh,
it.
when Dr. Hill was crouched at the end of my conference table in his chair, Dr. Napoleon Hill, if we got newcomers here, was crouched at the end of my conference table, doing other things, writing, but always listening to what was going on and observing what was going on. The two most frequent things he said to me, besides general advice, was, Ben, focus, because I'm the crow that gets distracted by the shiny object when left to my own devices. Frequently because I want to be distracted because I don't want to do what I'm doing. There's
Yeah.
a there's a reason I'm easily
But
distracted.
losing focus just sounds so much nicer than procrastination. So
Yeah,
let's just go with losing focus.
but Ben, focus. And
Right.
the other one was Ben, take, he'd say action. Ben, take action. And again, it goes back to procrastination. If a decision can be made later in the day, I'd rather make it later in the day. Something else may come up that would change my opinion, which is called procrastination. Because as the story I love telling about him was one day when we were planning a men's cosmetic line, starting out with primarily just fragrances and all. That was a big breakthrough in thinking in the cosmetic business, to have men's anything other than deodorant. And we had a meeting, and then he went back to South Carolina, came back, and we were having a meeting. The subject was the same. This happened 3 or 4 times. So after several times of sitting in the same meeting with the same people, he said to me, as they all left, he never criticized me or even questioned me in front of other people. But after I heard the click of the door and I saw his head come up, and I thought, uh-oh, here we go. He said, Ben, the next time you meet, we'd already agreed to that. We'll meet here next Thursday at noon or whatever it was. He said, the next time you meet, what are you going to know that you don't know now to pull the trigger and go with this? And I said, well, I don't know, I guess. He said, you're dithering from another generation.
I remember you telling me that the first time, and I wrote it on my whiteboard, dithering. Don't
You're,
do that.
he
Yes.
said, you must take action. Call them back in here and take action. So I reconvened the group. I said, does anybody here need anything before they do their part of it? Production, purchasing, legal department, advertise, so on, going around the table. Is there anything anybody needs that they don't have now? No, they're all looking at me like, why didn't you ask this weeks ago, I guess. But he said, I said, okay, then is there anybody who's going to vote against this? No, they're all looking around. And I said, all right, then let's go. Order the products, do this, get the printing presses running, take action. And then as they all left the room that time, Dr. Hill smiled at me and said something like, feel better? It was,
Well,
I
yeah,
had I
you
had
did
broken
though.
through, yeah, I'd broken through the procrastination barrier,
Right. Take
which
action. We
which
talk
can
a lot
prevent,
about that. Take action.
yeah, which can make you not make that phone call you're supposed to make, because it'd be easier if you could make the same amount of money without making the phone call, or to take the incoming complaint or whatever. But the message of that section is weed out those things that are messing with you, and replace it with meaningful activity made possible by either personal self-discipline or by hiring someone to do all those things for you and give you discipline.
Exactly. And before we go, and we're not all the way through this, but this is what I really wanted to touch on, is that your sales dynamo needed about 150 square feet of office space, and yeah, that's covered in the book. But then he fired his top seller. Let's talk about that a bit, or should we go back into that next week?
Yeah, let's go into it next week because it takes up more time than we have.
That's what I thought. It's a fascinating part. If anybody has this book, go to page 237. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so Ben, what do we want? We're going to finish this up. Well, we won't finish it up. We've got a few more areas in this book, but I say we start back up at 237.
You got it.
All right, I'm going to write that down this time. Okay, where
There's an idea.
Dr. Napoleon, and every time I say write that down, me and David Brown will say write that down, and we can hear you saying Napoleon Hill in your voice. Write that down, Ben. So we do,
Yeah.
we write
And
it
the
down.
comeback to that was, I'll remember. And Dr. Hill said, no, you won't.
You won't. Right. And you never do. I write
No.
things down. I had to remember this morning of all the silly things to remember. I'm almost out of Tums. Now, I don't eat them like candy, but when I need them kind of right now, or I will be throwing up over my own feet. I need something to settle my stomach. I went to the fridge and I had 2 Tums. Oh! Well, I came tearing through the house and went to Walmart and ordered Tums because if I didn't, I'd forget until I didn't have them.
Yeah, well, that's my listing thing. I've got the pad beside the bed and I eat 4 Tums at night because I used to have heartburn. I don't know if I do now or not. The 4 Tums cured it. So I chew up 4 Tums every night, but I'm always looking at the bottle, and I've either got another bottle in the bathroom in the cabinet, so I don't have to put it on the list, or I don't, in which case on my little yellow pad, I write Tums, which means in the morning it goes from that yellow pad to the big yellow pad in the kitchen called the shopping list. I never run out of anything as a
I
result of the
rarely do,
system.
but I panicked this morning. It's like 2 Tums. I might die. So I had to have them. So listen, tell people we talked about the books and your almost disaster with the books. Where can people find them?
Well, now that we have more than one, you can go to stores, stores dot ebay dot com /all one word Ronzoni Books, RONZONEBOOKS, stores.ebay.com /Ronzoni Books. They have special pricing there, free shipping. I don't offer free shipping at my website, and they're still signed. They bring me a supply. You wouldn't believe the supply I got yesterday to sign in advance as they were taking their share away, uh, because all the signed ones had gone. But they're signed and dated, and come with an unconditional lifetime money back guarantee.
At some point, I'm probably going to have to replace my original part too. It's getting just a little bit raggedy, but I'm not ready to give it up.
Don't give it up. Uh, uh, Put it aside. I've been offered, somebody was thumbing through my closers part one day, one of the early ones, not the original edition, but one of the early ones. And they saw all my underlines and markdowns, markups and yellows and so on. They said, "How much for this book?" And I said, "Well, everything's for sale except my integrity, but I really don't want to sell it." He said $10,000. And I said, "No." And then Gigi later in the day said, "You could get another yellow marker." I said, "No, I don't want to start over again. It's to the point now, like an old preacher with his family Bible in his hand.
Right.
I can flip it and it goes right where I need it to go. I'm not willing to go through that again."
And you can go through some of those sections and remember where you were when you first did that.
Yep, yep,
They're almost a journal in a way.
absolutely.
Yeah, I understand. So mentoring, how can people mentor with you or coach with you?
I'm about to send out a thing. Don't wait for it, but I'm about to send out a thing which might fill up the few little slots I have. I think I can take 4 or 5 more people. And on Constant Contact, I'm about to tell people that I have 4 or 5 slots. So if you're interested in being mentored by me, like I was mentored by Dr. Napoleon Hill, I use his exact model. Just shoot me an email at B as in Ben, F as in Frank, G as in gay, the numeral 3, BFG3 at DirectCon, short for Direct Connect, DirectCon as in November, .net. And just somewhere in it, you don't need to write "Gone with the Wind." Just make sure in the subject line there's something that tells me you're interested in mentoring program, question mark, might be a good way. And we'll send you, no one's going to call you or bug you, but we'll send you out a letter that by email that looks like it was written just to you, but I'll fess up, it's a standard letter explaining the program and how you can get involved and what it costs.
Perfect. And listen, everybody, we are easy to find. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find me all over the internet. You can't throw a stick on the internet without hitting Your Partner in Success Radio. And as a result, this one as well. So whatever you want to talk with us about or you have questions, call me at 888, it's toll free, 888-719-6711. That phone does not ring in my office. You will have to leave a message, but I will return your call. And we want questions. Whatever it is that you need to know about, we're going to find an answer for you. And if you want to be a sponsor for this program and for Your Partner in Success Radio, 888-719-6711. Ben, thank you. I will see you next Wednesday.
All right. If not before, maybe we'll have contact. Other than that, thank you very much. As always, I enjoyed it. You are wonderful at what you do.
Thank you. And I have more documents to send to you. I was thinking the other day, I have to tell you very quickly. I was talking with on my other podcast, and we were talking about this book, which, these authors were on the show with me, and the book is wonderful. And we got to talking about how long it took them to write it. And they asked me about my book because, it's a conversation. And they said, "How long is it going to take you to write?" And I said, 4 weeks. And they said, "Really?" Theirs took 6. So they were like, "Oh, you can do it." They were very supportive. And I'm going to get it written within the next 30 days. And I've got a ton of it written. And I'm not even really going back and changing it. I'm going to leave that to when we edit it. But I'm on it. I'm writing. You told me to write an hour a day. I'm writing an hour or more every single day. And the more I write, the more I want to write. It's just, self-fulfilling.
Yeah, it's back to Dr. Hill in action. The hardest sentence to write when you're writing a book is the first sentence, today. You got to start. And if you start, the graveyards are filled with authors who never finish their book.
or started it.
or
And
started
that
it.
was
Yeah.
my problem. I went back and I looked, I've been thinking about this book for 7 years, which is humiliating. And I went back and I looked at all of those documents and all of those thoughts, and I went, nope, nope. Oh, what the heck? Nope, nope. It's very, what were you thinking? Yep. So this is a whole new book, but it's the right time for this book. So thank you. Anyway, I will see you and everybody else next week. Get in touch with us, listen, ask us questions. Bye.
Bye.